What's going on in YouTube? Haven't been here for a while, to be honest with you. I've had loads of events on, loads of work on, and then, obviously we've been on Spitfire, we've been putting those out, but not too many solo videos of myself being in here, of course, but yeah, I think things have been good, but I just thought I'd break down some Pro League action that's going to be going on this week. Of course, we did just have CWL London, which obviously I said we talked about on Spitfire, but we've got plenty to talk about in terms of the Pro League. Now, previously in some other videos, I'd done like a preview the whole week, but this last time around there was so many games to preview that it sort of like became me just talking shit for about 25 minutes. So this time I'm going to talk shit for about 10. I've got on the screen as per usual. Basically what I've done is pick out a game per day that I really think is going to be an interesting one to watch. The games that we've actually picked for the first day is of course Optic GenG. Second day we picked LG and FaZe. Third day we went with GenG Reciprocity, and then fourth day we went with Rec v FaZe. So they're happening obviously Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yeah, they should be really, really good games. But as I said, we're going to run through each of these matchups, sort of discuss in terms of their London performances, where we expect them to end up. I've went through some of the stats, etc., to give me a bit of a better idea of where I think these games are going to be going. If you want to place bets, etc., then use this at your own risk, really. But yeah, we're going to go with Optic v GenG first. Now, the thing is with Optic this season, ever since Vegas, I've been trying to figure out if it's a case of them being caught up, as in they were ahead of everybody at Vegas by a short margin. They just seem to learn the game a lot faster. Or is it a case of them not performing as well? Still really struggling to make that decision of which way Optic are going right now. They haven't really performed at the same level as they had done in Vegas comparatively to everybody else since Vegas, so it's not been great for them. Although third at London, not a terrible result, but I think if you are as thirsty as the green wall are for some victories, then yeah, they that's all they expect. They expect first places every single time. GenG, I said, had a ridiculous start in the Pro League. Looked very, very good, and they had a ridiculous start in pools as well. And then when they got into the bracket, that's when things went a little bit south for them, unfortunately. So both overall, okay Londons, but not great. Okay, so let's talk about the matchup. GenG's previous S&D record was very, very good. Obviously, everybody knows that they were 9-0 in the Pro League on S&D. Things changed when they changed their roster, leaving they took Spacely out of the roster, introduced the new player who's escaped me, Envoy, that's it. They introduced Envoy over Spacely, and things in the S&D front seemed to go downhill a little bit. Now we're talking about S&D though, and these two teams. Optic have a 6-2 S&D record in London, and GenG had a 4-3, so you'd objectively give that one to Optic, but there's many reasons to that. I think both their hardpoint records, you can look into those, 5-5 for Optic, 7-2 for GenG. Surprising for me for Optic to be 5-5 in that game mode when you look at the slaying ability of that team. But I think ultimately the winner of the control map will swing this series. I think both teams will probably go on to win their picks, whatever they be. I think the irrelevant of London statistics very equal in control and hardpoint, respectively. For Optic, they are 5-2 in control at London, and GenG were 4-2. It's very similar records, of course. So I think it really does come down to who wins the control. Whoever does go on to win that map, I think will win this series. However, I'm going to slightly side with Optic in the series in 3-2 fashion. I think they'll take the hard point as said, but the S&D, I think, if you were talking about this maybe like 2 months ago, you'd absolutely give the S&Ds to GenG, but Optic's S&D has been very, very good recently. A couple of big reasons for that. Dashi obviously had a good event himself overall, but TJ alongside him in an S&D, they put out a 1.49 and a 1.5 a pair. And TJ picked up nearly 20% of first bloods in every single round that he played across both teams. Then comparatively, I think it was like 15 or 16% was the next one down. So way and way, way above where they were. Optic themselves picked up a 60% first blood ratio. Now, of course, first blood doesn't mean everything in a round, but if you're 4v5 for 60% of those rounds, 5v4 for 60% of those rounds, then you're looking good. Karma had a really good S&D tournament as well at 1.3. So either way, Optic are having a very, very good S&D time at this moment in time, and I think that will be the reason as to why they win this series. GenG, I said, they do have it in their locker to win these S&Ds. We know they do, but it just hasn't been there since Spacely left, and I think that will make the difference. I think Optic, the way that TJ and the way that Dashi's playing in S&D with Karma backing them up, absolutely no problems whatsoever. I think it'll be a close game, and I think they're going to take a 3-2 last map. LG v FaZe on Wednesday. Now, I had to pick it, really, didn't I? I mean, how could you not? You have to talk about this game. You know FaZe are going to be coming into this with a lot of fire after the result in London and the way that it happened. LG have really had quite a fall off since Fort Worth, having their going in first. They're looking great in that tournament, to then falling off and finishing 7th, 8th. In the grand scheme of things, after the start in their groups, not the worst finish in the world for LG. Top 8 is never too bad a result. But for me, when you look at FaZe at 9th and 12th, as they lost to LG in that fashion, you'd argue they should have been 7th, 8th, and would have been had there not been an issue, of course. So looking at records, Hardpoint LG went 5 and 6, S&D was 4 and 6, their Control was 2 and 4, or 1 and 5. FaZe in London were 5 and 4 in Hardpoint, 2 and 6 in S&D, and their Control was 3 and 2, or 4 and 1, if you want to work it that way. But either way, we know that FaZe's S&D still needs a lot of work, which for me actually surprises me quite a lot. I think that with people like Celium, with people like Asim, these guys have always typically been known as good S&D players in their respective scenes. When they were on the come up, they were always very, very solid. So to see FaZe struggling as much in S&D surprises me. But right now, it's their standout worst game order 2 and 6, obviously across London, which is really the only thing we've got to base them off. The Control and the Hardpoint looks pretty good, though, their Control specifically. I am going to say it would be a 4 and 1 record technically for me at London, which would have meant they would have advanced through. Their Hardpoint as well looks pretty decent. Only in 5 and 4 in that one. Their group was relatively tough, though, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But I think you look at the slaying ability that they have, and that's one of the big issues when you're going up against FaZe. So that is actually going to be one of the reasons I'm going to give this one to FaZe at 3-1. LG definitely have the searches. I think if LG can take a respawn, they'll probably win the series. It just seems as if FaZe haven't figured out the search and destroy yet, which it does take time. It's hard to scrim search and destroy because it's hard to be in the same situations as people would be in these LAN settings. People don't want to give stuff away. So I think FaZe, their search and destroy will progressively get better. Overall, they will progressively get better as a team. They've only had one event together, and other than that, it was just scrims beforehand. So as the Pro League goes on, I think FaZe will grow in strength. I think they'll have the fire going into this game as well. They really do want to win this one. There's a lot of reasons for them to do so. I think they will take this one 3-1, which would have been the result in London had that decision go their way. The next game is going to be GenG Reciprocity. Now, I know Optic FaZe are playing each other on this day as well, so that's a questionable one. But yeah, I think this will be an interesting one, just because I want to see if Reciprocity do bounce back from a poor performance. They finished 7th, 8th in London, which I'd say is not the worst. And all things considered, when you look at their stats, you somewhat wonder how they didn't finish top 16, 12th, 12th to 16th? Yeah, top 12? Yeah, something like that. 13th to 16th, sorry. You wonder how after you look at their stats. So, I said, yeah, they had a very, very strange London event. We'll run through some what their KDs were at some point in a second. But for me, their S&D record at 1 and 5 is something that I'm looking at for this series. Realistically, I expected that to be a lot better. Their S&D has always typically been pretty good. Obviously, we find themselves in a lot of map number 5s, especially in Fort Worth, and that was the case when they were winning them all as well. So that's always good, but they need to find themselves there. They were losing a lot of series due to their hard point not being great at 4 and 7. So their S&D was typically very good before this event. We talked about that, but they in London, they put up an overall team kill to death ratio of 0.76 in that game, which is the lowest of everybody. They had the 3rd lowest first blood percentage and the lowest round win percentage. Obviously, if you're putting up a 0.76 and the 3rd lowest first blood percentage, then obviously that's going to make a big difference to your round percentage as well. But as a whole, an absolutely horrendous time in S&D for Reciprocity in London. And the fact that they still finished 7th and 8th is a big testament to me to how pretty decent their hardpoint and control usually is as well. How good their teamwork is. They've been grinding out results where they need to. GenG we've already talked about, but I think for me that this could be 2-0 to GenG, then the control can maybe swing it. If we do see Reciprocity go back to the level that we have seen of them, specifically in Fort Worth, then this is going to be a very, very good game. One thing for me that is actually, as I was writing this up, that put me off a little bit. I heard that Reciprocity hadn't scrimmed since London together, and they're going to be. And Tommy doesn't actually get in till tomorrow when they play their game against Optic in the evening, or he gets in today. Either way, he gets in late, fairly late. So they haven't really had time to scrim, etc. Get back into the groove of it, fix whatever was going wrong in London. I'm going to give this one over to GenG with a 3-1 victory. I think that record got a good chance of taking hold of control, but I think GenG, typically in the Pro League, have looked very, very good. They are sitting top of Division A right now. Reciprocity, maybe just not time for them yet. By this point, of course, this is actually going to be on Thursday. On Wednesday. They would have had a couple of games, so they may well be warmed up, but I think it might be a little bit too much to take GenG in Reciprocity's current form. I would like to see them bounce back, and it could be a very good game if they do. However, GenG will have their tails up, I feel, after a potential loss to Optic on day one. So we will see what happens, but Reciprocity, we want to see more from, but I think this could be a very, very good game. Reciprocity featuring my fourth game to watch, actually. Reciprocity versus FaZe is the one to watch on Thursday for me. And you know exactly why, because it's the Matty and Brad Marshall series going on. It's currently one apiece. We're going into round number 3 between these two. And it's a hard one to call, to be honest with you. I think, you know, FaZe are a team who will progressively get better. They have, I want to say, some inexperience on their team in terms of Selim and Asim, but even Zuma had actually an alright event in London, but he hasn't necessarily played at the top level this year that much. So in terms of this game online, etc., he's going to have to be a bit more well practiced. We are going to see some time have to be taken for FaZe for them to get back where they want to be. But I said their S&D is very, very poor, but Reciprocity's S&D was very, very poor. So I think this is going to come down to teams battling it out for these respawn game modes and then seeing what happens in the S&D, because right now neither team is looking great at it. As I said, we've already spoke about their records in London, as both these teams are featured in one of my featured games over one of the other days. Let's talk about specific matchups. Now, in terms of SMGs, I don't think Asim and Zuma are going to typically be known for putting up their big numbers. They're both sort of that player who will try to be awkward. They'll try and get in people's faces and try and flank around, leaving a lot of the slaying to the Maddox duo on FaZe, of course. But Asim and Zuma, for me, do lose out to Dylan and Zed in this respective category, I would say. The Sogs on Reciprocity are two of their biggest threats, even though Zed had a terrible tournament and Dylan didn't necessarily have a great tournament either when we were over in London. I think I specifically remember Shawnee was the only one that went positive KD at that event with a 1.0. He actually put up just about nearly everybody was actually under a 1. Let's talk about the Maddoxes now. I would absolutely go with Scraps and Selim in this scenario. I think, you know, Wiscon's obviously a very good player, and he's going to be going up against his brother. For me, though, it's really hard. But I just think Scraps on this team, on this FaZe roster, is one of the better players in the league. He's one of the best players on this game for me. I think he will help to dominate that Maddox area with this team, obviously going up against the players on Reciprocity. Now, the ICR battle will be intriguing, as Zero, we know he's going to be a very good AR player eventually when he gets things going. We've seen it way back, obviously, in IW, that he was very good in that main AR role. But he hasn't as much experience as Shawnee in this game, in that role, of course. So I'd slightly side with Shawnee on that one. Overall, I think the composition slightly works in FaZe's favour, just because I really, really favour their Maddoxes in this game. I think that Scraps, as I said, is above and beyond one of the best players in this game, and I think Selim is on his way there. He's a very, very solid player. So I think the Maddoxes of FaZe may be a little too much for Rec in this one. This is why I'm going to give it 3-1 to FaZe. I think they're going to take all their respawns, to be honest with you. It could be a 3-0, but it's going to be close. Don't get me wrong. It is going to be close. I just think the slaying power on FaZe is very, very strong where it needs to be. And I think Reciprocity might struggle with that one because of that. I think it might take Rec to get take some time to get over that performance on London as well. I think this week is going to be a tough one for them. They've got some tough games. I don't feel great about Rec this week. Let's see how they do, though. They are a team that could potentially surprise me. You know, Tommy didn't have a great London, but him in that Maddox role, if he can step up as well, then this team suddenly becomes a lot more scary. And I just think if they all elevate their levels, obviously this becomes a much closer game, but I'm not too sure what Reciprocity we're going to get in week number 1. But let's just have a recap of what the scores are, what I think the scores are going to be and what games I am highlighting per day. So tonight I should say, in a couple hours after this video goes live, I'm highlighting Optic GenG out of the 2. Of course, it's FaZe versus UIU tonight as well. Day number 2, so Tuesday, we're going to highlight LGV FaZe. I think that is the one to watch, and I was going to give that one over to FaZe 3-1 just to go back, and I would say that Optic would win the game against GenG tonight, 3-2 on the Monday, of course. But Tuesday, we're saying that FaZe are going to beat LG 3-1 after the just to maybe get some revenge after what happened in London. But then we're going to go and move into Wednesday, GenG versus Reciprocity, and I think GenG will be too much for Reciprocity with 3-1 victory. Then moving into the last day, which is going to be Reciprocity v FaZe, Wuskins versus Scraps. I'm going to go with FaZe with a 3-1 victory. I think they're all going to be great games to watch. I do apologize about the small hiatus I've been on and trying to sort things out. I said we've been very, very busy in terms of events, etc. Spitfire's been going out though as much as we can, and we will keep that one going out, but we're going to resume all these solo videos because I know you like me talking shit for some apparent reason. But yeah, guys, if you could leave a like, leave a comment on what you think the games to watch are going to be. Do you agree with my results, etc.? And also, if you could share the video on social media, subscribe as well if you could, and we will see you guys for the next video.